So Bobby had several romantic interests in the show, but I don't think any of them just straight up used him more than Tid Pao.
So do you enjoy exploring the mysterious world of science?
Do you?
Yes?
Hey folks, welcome to Squirrel Tactics. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out our Patreon, the merch store, our sister channel, and we've got a new top tier patron this week. So, Spaz, this one's for you.
Alright. Someone's insane. Look out, someone's insane.
I got my eye on you, nutcase.
Alright, let's get into it. Bad girls, what you gonna do? The title comes from Bad Boys by Inner Circle, which most folks remember as the theme song for the TV show Cops.
Bad boys, what you gonna do?
Not really sure if that got through copyright, so if you just heard the song, cool. If not, blame the record company. This is the first expansion of Con's family tree that we get to see, with the introduction of his niece, Tid Pao, as well as his brother. And we get some other family members mentioned as well. We start off the episode with the guys in the alley again, but this time they're shocked and appalled at some graffiti that's been spray painted on the fence. More specifically, Q-Bag, which is probably short for quarterbag, which is a drug reference, and you can take from that what you will. They view this as a sign that their neighborhood is dropping in quality and becoming a slum. I mean, it's not, but you know, that is the thought process that we would expect from the guys. Meanwhile, up at Tom Landry, the middle school, not the head coach, Mr. Peterson is announcing the upcoming science fair, duly named Rock the Science, since the event is sponsored by a local radio station. And the winners get to present their project to Easy Ed and the Chicken Boys, so yay science?
Yes, science!
Joseph wants to be Bobby's partner since they're best friends, but Bobby has another idea. Partner with somebody smart so he doesn't have to do anything. And as luck would have it, he had a next door neighbor who was smart, has a crush on him, and was willing to do more than her fair share of work. I believe the technical term for this is hitting the jackpot. She also said she has a bunch of ideas, including some if they can use radium, and I hope to God that they won't let them use radium. We do not need any more radium girls. Bobby is also oblivious to the fact that Connie still holds a flame for him. This is like a season after they split amicably, but Joseph clearly picks up what Connie's putting down and fills Bobby in. The guys get rid of the Q-Bag tag, though it's apparently easier than they were hoping for.
This is gonna be cool.
Here we go!
This is the best day ever.
Now it's fast.
You missed a spot.
I did? Nah, man, it just like that old shadow, man.
Bobby wants to make sure that it's clear Connie knows that he's not interested in rekindling anything with her. This, by the way, was after he was scared with the possible fate of soul-sucking never-ending loneliness by Bill.
Bobby?
So apparently he's worked through that, and Connie has chosen to overlook the whole I'm your candy man thing and getting an arrow in the eye.
Why can't you love me the way you love these assorted chocolates? I'm sweet on you, Connie. Connie, I'm your little candy man.
Anywho, he approaches who he thinks is Connie, even though she looks completely different than Connie from behind, but whatever. He ends up getting flipped like a toddler at a karate tournament and left rather confused on the ground. He checks with Connie and learns that it was not her that put him down like a sack of potatoes. It was her cousin Tid Pao, voiced by Lucy Liu, who was in town from Los Angeles. In reality, she was sent to stay in Texas because she was running around with the wrong crowd, so her dad, who happens to be Con's brother, sent her to live in Texas for a time. Oh, and let's also not forget that she apparently owes money to some people that you don't want to owe money to, and I'm pretty sure that's really why she's in Texas. She's trying to get back to LA as quick as possible, planning to cook up a batch or two of meth to bankroll her trip back to Cali. And she has plans to use Bobby in order to do so. Also, I'm guessing that Tid Pao is this guy's sister, considering they're both looked at as delinquents, and Con only has two brothers. And I'm pretty sure that this nephew came from LA and not on a farm.
My delinquent nephew coming to town. Don't buy him beer. I know rednecks like to buy beer for kids. He'll ask. He like to party. Don't bite him, bear!
The guys find that the graffiti has reappeared, the tenacity of troubled youth, and Dale comes up with a gribble of an idea to stop it from continuing.
We build a protective razor wire top fence around our existing fence.
Dang it, Dale. That's genius.
Indeed.
Yeah, that doesn't work, because of course it doesn't work. That would look terrible, it's easy to avoid, and I highly doubt that that's allowed in the block charter, Hank. If you don't allow 8-foot privacy fences, I don't see them allowing barbed wire.
I'm building fence. Big fence. 8 feet tall. Between your house and my house.
8 feet, huh? Yeah. You see, Con, in this neighborhood, side fences have to be 5'6" or under. It's not in the code or anything, it's just something I'm trying to enforce.
Bobby is able to successfully complete his science project partner swap, with Joseph becoming partners with Connie and Bobby joining up with Tid Pao, which he does solidify by asking to get together for a quote-unquote brainstorming session. Do notice here that she's drinking from Principal Moss's mug. I wonder if there's coffee in there or that mug's usual content, whiskey.
I got that disease where you wake up in strange places drunk.
And Bobby tries to figure out somewhere cool to take Tid Pao out to show that he's as hip and cool and with it as she is.
Okay. It's exciting? That place where you bet on which chicken is madder.
Yeah, cockfighting. Luann just suggested Bobby take her to a cockfight. And that makes me wonder who took Luann to a cockfight. Was it Hoyt? My money's on Hoyt taking a child Luann to one.
Ooh, who's this foxy little number?
Hoyt, that's your daughter, Luann.
Daddy!
Well, last time I saw you, you were a princess this high. And now you a grown-up beauty queen.
Also, she somehow hit the nail on the head, because I could see Tid Pao being all about some cockfighting. By the way, she refers to Bobby as a pig farmer, most likely a reference to Arlen's reputation as a pig town.
Pig town? You a pig farmer?
I think you're confused, sir. We don't raise pigs in Arlen, Texas. We process them.
Oh, yeah, you folks make them tiny breakfast weenies. But you're gonna have to leave now.
Due to it being the home of at least 2 pork processing plants. Larson Pork Products.
My great-grandfather started Larson Pork Products with little more than 3 pigs and a killing hammer. Today, I'm proud to say, we kill more pigs than, pig hepatitis.
And Uncle Chuck's Breakfast Meats.
You're Uncle Chuck of Uncle Chuck's Breakfast Meats. Your picture's on my sausage patties.
Oh, that's my dad. He founded the company, but I run it now. And someday I'll pass it on to my son. Unless he's still a vegetarian, then I guess the girl gets it.
However, there is an urban legend about this episode where supposedly she didn't originally call him a pig farmer, but rather a pig fucker. And that this was changed after the first broadcast, which no, that didn't happen. There is no way Fox censors would have let that one slide, especially back then. So, no, sorry urban legend, you're busted. Anywho, Peggy suggests the Pioneer Woman's Museum. I mean, it's an idea, but Bobby decides to take her to eat sushi. A sushi place would be about as hip as he's gonna find in Arlen, if we're being honest. And I find it kind of funny that Carl from Bobby's previous favorite hip spot, the Showbiz Deli, has swapped over to sushi instead of lots and lots of liver.
So you really like the chopped chicken liver?
I love it. It's meat I can eat with a spoon.
I get it in a drum from a catalog. It's a lot easier than Italian food like my last place. Did you know you have to heat up Italian food?
Well, you gotta melt the cheese.
He's also apparently not the most imaginative, because he went from the Showbiz Deli to Showbiz Sushi. The 2 kiddos end up going to the museum, where they do have some fun messing with the exhibits like typical teenagers. Also, how do they have a whole Pioneer Women's Museum but completely gloss over the whole Harlot Town thing? You're gonna tell me that historians in charge of that museum don't know about Arlen's real founding? And if they have this museum, why wasn't this mentioned in the Harlot Town episode, at all? That seems like a good place to have that new museum, but whatever.
And it's all gonna begin right here in the center of town, where we're gonna convert the musty old soldier and sailor's home into the new Arlen Museum of Prostitution! Why don't you come up and see us sometime?
After messing with the Pioneer mannequin ladies for a bit, they head back to the alley where we find out that Tid Pao is the Q-bag in question who's been tagging up the fence, and Bobby gets caught doing the same. Bobby gets a talking to about doing juvenile delinquent type behavior, and Con gives Tid Pao an earful about staying away from old fat white lump next door.
What is it with you beautiful Asian girls and that stupid redneck boy? Why so self-destructive? Low self-esteem?
Yeah, Bobby does certainly have a type. They're either East Asian or blonde.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
So pretty much as far from Peggy as possible, and these talkative don't work either way because Bobby sneaks out to see Tid Pao in Con's shed, where she's been cooking up some good old-fashioned American meth. And guess what she needs? That's right, propane. This leads to Bobby stealing Hank's keys, and they sneak into Strickland in order to steal some propane from the tank outside as well as a few inside, where Bobby almost gets caught by Buck re-upping his money pot for a poker game. Yeah, there goes the petty cash. The next morning, Hank figures out that they were robbed rather quickly. Seriously, he could tell by the sound that the tank makes, and he somehow gets blamed and the lost propane taken out of his paycheck, and how does that work? Those dots do not connect for me. I get it's on Buck if anybody, and Buck is a dodging accountability gold medalist.
If I'm losing my shirt in there, I'm gonna fake a heart attack. Now that's your cue to come in, waving the pill, screaming, "My daddy's having a heart attack! My daddy's having a heart attack!"
But damn, that one still doesn't make sense to me other than to act as a reason for Bobby to feel bad. I mean, would any of y'all feel bad about stealing from Buck Strickland?
You ever see someone fish for $40, Bobby?
No.
Watch this. Look at him go! He makes in a year what I make in a week.
So, Bobby is down with stealing propane. Granted, it did require her to kiss him first to cloud his judgment, and we all know how kissing can cloud that boy's thinking like a poisonous coal fog over Victorian London.
Just tell me why you were dancing with all those guys!
Goodbye, Bobby.
But when Tid Pao requests that he steal some cough medicine, they need cough medicine because it has pseudoephedrine, a common decongestant, in it, which is also kind of important to the manufacturing of crystal meth. No, a squirrel is not going to explain how to make meth. I do know how, but that's neither here nor there. Don't ask questions. That violates the first rule of Project Mayhem. Just watch the video and eat your cabbage.
Boy, that cheese.
Connie and Joseph have their project ready, though Joseph may not be all that well informed on what exactly they made.
Check out this machine we made. It picks up radio signals.
It's an incubator, Joseph. I had the radio on in my room while I was making it.
Then does music just...
So, Bobby?
Yep. That's Joseph. Connie is still hurt that Bobby is going after her cousin, who Bobby can't find, and that's because she's off at a truck stop making a drug deal with what looks to be a guy that's totally on the up and up. Though he is securing the purchase of illicit drugs from a 13-year-old girl after all, so he's gotta look the part. But when she gets back to her little illegal version of Baskin Robbins, get it because it's also called ice, she finds that it's gone since Bobby took their science project up to the school because, you know, rock the science and crap. The boy is under the impression that they're making candy, and I'm sorry, but there's no way he hasn't been through multiple years of DARE by this point. I get being sheltered from some of the horrors of reality, but come on now. I knew what meth was in like 3rd or 4th grade, and this was back when you could basically buy it legally at any gas station or health store. Diet pills back then were basically meth, yet they were advertised on TV.
Kane, this is the express line. Can't you count? 1, 2.
The smart way to burn fat. Stacker 2, the world's strongest fat burner.
Yeah, that guy's a mayor now, by the way. You know, now that I think about it, they sure did tell us a lot about stuff they didn't want us to have anything to do with. I mean, there was a song and everything.
To keep a tin of trust.
But whatever, what matters here is that Bobby just brought a drug factory up to the school, and I'm not an expert on education or anything, but I am pretty sure you're not supposed to do that, especially when one of the judges just happens to be Mike Soto's dad, Chad Soto, also known as Officer Chad Soto. And if Bobby doesn't recognize crystal meth, I'm willing to bet the farm that Officer Chad Soto does. Tid Pao shows up and can't believe how dumb Bobby is, and my only response to that is, really? Really? Come on, Tid Pao. You're really that surprised?
This is the moment I've been waiting for.
She knows that nothing good can come from this and runs away. Honestly, given the situation, that's probably her best play. Feigning ignorance is not gonna get you out of this one. Connie comes over to gloat and, like any sane person, realizes rather quickly that Bobby ain't making candy. Like, seriously, Stevie Wonder could see that this is a meth lab. She tries to explain to Bobby what he's actually making, however, she lacks crayons and hand puppets, so she can't get it through to him.
You know, crystal meth, ice, crank.
Big deal, I made a crank machine. I'll just change the sign to how a crank is made.
Which, again, it's surprising that he doesn't know any of the slang terms for meth. Though, to be fair, a lot of folks were confused on what exactly horse crank was.
Man, you talk about them dang old go pills, man? It's talking about that old horse crank, man.
Yeah, Coach's special vitamins really did the trick. I broke my leg going for a touchdown, and I didn't realize it for 2 days. Took 7 police officers to get me into that ambulance.
It's speed, folks. Really, really, really powerful speed. Now, Bobby is freaking out because he's about to get pinched, and full disclosure, Mr. Peterson appears to be completely blind to the fact that he's looking at a drug lab as well. Though Officer Soto certainly knows exactly what he's looking at quick, fast, and in a hurry. Luckily, Clark Peters made a potato gun as his project because, of course, Clark Peters would make a potato gun for his project. And Connie uses said potato gun to destroy the chemistry setup that Bobby's got going on, and considering those chemicals and that open flame, it is a miracle that some stuff didn't go boom. Also, apparently, her destroying the meth lab makes Officer Soto forget that he was looking at a meth lab, and Bobby gets away scot-free somehow, though, yeah, Bobby, you're gonna want to go ahead and wash that off as quickly as you can. I do think something must have been said due to us ending the episode with Tid Pao having been shipped off to Con's other brother.
I'm the last uncle you got. You'll screw up here. We ship you back to Grandma in Laos.
Yeah, funny how she thought Bobby was a pig farmer, yet here she is shoveling cow crap. And the Hills eat at Showbiz Sushi, where Hank and Peggy try chicken tempura, and they like it, which is not surprising because it's just Japanese fried chicken. Yeah, I know the breading's different, but whatever. And fun little final fact here, the Japanese are actually big fans of eating KFC on Christmas. It goes back to a marketing campaign from the 70s, one that worked so well that now they eat KFC as a traditional Christmas dinner the same way we eat turkey. So, bad girls, what you gonna do? It's just an awesome episode that hopefully everybody loves. If you don't love it, that's your opinion, and you can have that opinion. I mean, it's wrong, but you can still have it. Great jokes, one of my favorite Bobby episodes, and it gave us, at the time, a slight glimmer of Bobby and Connie getting back together, which we all know didn't end up happening during the original run. The guys fighting the good fight against neighborhood tagging. Peggy is great here. Luann literally has one line, and it's awesome. Just a classic, well-written, salt-of-the-earth, king-of-the-hill episode. Oh, and meth. Lots and lots of meth. So much that I've said the word meth 12 times. Well, 13 now. It does surprise me that Dare was never once mentioned, and it was a pretty big deal back when I was in school. We've got Buck being Buck, gambling away what he can gamble away, Joseph being weird, with Dale covertly guiding him along using means that raise disturbing questions, and Con's unhappy, which typically makes everybody else laugh. It's also another case of Bobby following trends and what he thinks to be hip and cool. We never hear anything more about the manure shoveling fate of Tid Pao, but I do think it would be hilarious if, like, Bobby and Connie travel to the Platter Ranch in the revival, and they end up running into Tid Pao as an adult who stayed out on the farm and married a local farmer. Yeah, it might be dumb, but I would certainly laugh. But yeah, overall, it's a great episode. Certainly one I greatly enjoy, and if nothing else, we got possibly the funniest and yet also somehow saddest and possibly most unsettling science fair project that I have ever heard of.
Bobby, this is a refreshing change from Emily's Can Mice Swim project. Turns out they can, but not for long.
Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see y'all next time.
I'm going to Harlot Town, where the gals treat a gent with 2 dimes like a king. Yes, Harlot Town, where you only have to ask to get most everything.